The State of the Union address is usually the moment when we see Trump at his most, well, presidential. Tonight we've been promised calls for unity in a polarised age, a pledge that, by the way, he made last year.
Together, we can achieve absolutely anything.
And we'll hear his hugely ambitious plan to stop transmission of HIV within 11 years. But this time, much has also changed. The audience, for one. The November midterm elections gave Democrats control of the lower house.
President Trump faces resistance within the House Democrats, led by, of course, Nancy Pelosi. But what you're also starting to see is a resistance amongst the Senate Republicans. While the president is claiming that he's going to try to unite everyone behind common themes tonight, it's really hard to see how he will do it, given the status quo.
The Democratic response will be delivered by Stacey Abrams, who, despite failing to win her Georgia governor's seat, is emerging as one of the party's rising stars.
If I wasn't your first choice, or if you made no choice at all, you're going to have a chance to do a do-over.
But perhaps the most striking thing about tonight's speech is the timing. It should, don't forget, have been delivered last month. It was postponed because of the partial government shutdown, prompted by Trump's demand that Congress pay for a wall along that southern border with Mexico. The Democrats refused to budge. Trump's insistence led to paralysis. Hundreds of thousands of public sector workers, air traffic control, baggage handlers were left without salaries or the means to pay household bills and mortgages. And it's that audience we'll really be looking at tomorrow. The blue-collar vote, for whom Trump promised to make America great again. Will they desert a president who left them, for a month at least, high and dry? Or will they respect the president who did everything within his power to deliver on that most unforgettable of campaign slogans?
We will build the wall 100%, and Mexico will be paying for the wall.
Historically, members of both parties have supported a border barrier where the experts say it's needed. They currently think we need about 235 additional miles. That's what the president is calling for. If Congress refuses to negotiate and work on a deal, then he'll take the action and appropriate action that are allowed under the law to be able to fund that construction.
The president and his supporters can argue that he has opened up the whole debate on immigration, made the Democrats tackle a subject they never got to grips with fully under the Obama years. And we should expect to hear more about the American economy.
America's doing really well right now. 5.2 million new jobs. Paychecks are going up at the highest rate in 10 years. These are the kinds of successes that the president's going to be talking about.
That's a boast that served Trump well so far. But the Mueller investigation is weeks, perhaps days, away from returning its findings into collusion with Russia over the 2016 election, a moment that could make things deeply uncomfortable for a sitting president seeking re-election. This time next year, America's primaries will be well underway. Democratic candidates already lining up to take on Trump in 2020. There may even be some on his own Republican side who want to have a crack too. All of that is why tonight matters so much. Donald Trump makes his pitch to America as the president who's won once and should be allowed to do it again. How will that be received from those who loved him the first time round? As the man who's determined to deliver what he promised, or a leader who brought America to its longest period of governmental paralysis in presidential history? Well, joining us now, Dennard, a Republican communications strategist who supports President Trump, and we'll speak to Amy Pope, who's a former Homeland Security advisor to President Trump. First of all, let me just ask you, Paris, do you think, sorry, to President Obama, Amy, you're going to correct me straight away on that one.
That was a promotion. That was a promotion for her. She loved it.
Do you think, Paris, since you're in there, we're going to get unity Trump tonight?
You know what I do? I was fortunate enough to be with the president and the vice president last night, and they are optimistic about what's going to be in this speech and that it's going to go over well, because the president wants to talk about unity. Unity in the sense of bringing the Congress together so that we can work together to advance the agenda for the American people. And that includes a lot of things that there should be common ground on. Immigration reform and border security should not be partisan issues. Infrastructure spending and prescription drug prices should not be partisan issues. So I think the president really wants to unify in his message to bring the people together so that the Congress can actually do the work of the people.
And yet what we've seen is each side already filling the gallery with what looks like their own exhibits. You know, you've got Pelosi, who says she's bringing in trans soldiers to prove a point to Trump, and you've got Trump bringing in America's injured at the hands of immigrants. That's no way to talk to unity, is it? That's crazy.
Well, no, I think what it is it talks about the issues. Each side wants to personalize their causes and personalize things. So in addition to bringing in people who have been impacted by illegal criminal aliens coming into this country, President Trump is also bringing in people who have benefited from the tax cuts or benefited from the Second Chance Act or been benefited from the different policies that he's done. And so that's why he wants to highlight those Americans, those amazing Americans whose stories go right in line to the agenda so that the American people can see that there are people behind his who can be positively impacted by what the Congress can do if they unify.
Okay. Amy, do you think that President Trump is in a stronger position this year than when he made the speech a year ago?
Absolutely not. I mean, he is reeling from self-inflicted wounds. The fact that the government was shut down for so long, that you had federal workers standing in line at food banks to collect basic necessities, staples, because they couldn't afford their grocery bill. I mean, that right there spoke to the American people and highlighted how he is out of touch with basic needs.
And not only did it speak to the American people, it has actually shown in his polling now that he is down 7% from a month ago. His approval ratings, 53%. This is not a president who's got the people on his side right now, Paris.
This is not a president who cares about poll numbers. He doesn't do poll-tested policy. What he does is he does things that are best for the American people. And if the polls don't show that, that's fine. It's the same polls who said he wouldn't be sitting there as president of the United States and delivering the State of the Union address. And so I think what the president is going to do is lay out the positive agenda. The president is, I disagree. I think he's in a stronger position because the country's stronger, the economy's stronger, the record unemployment lows for African Americans, for Asian Americans, for women, for Americans that are disabled. These are positive things, that the 3% growth, all the things that are happening. You look at the Second Chance Act,
if that's what America is listening to right now, then he's got this one sewn up.
I don't think so. I mean, the midterm elections showed that America is losing patience with this particular brand of politics, right? To the extent that he had won districts that had gone for President Obama in the past, that support was eroding, clearly demonstrated by the number of Democrats who were voted into office in traditionally Republican districts. And more importantly, it appears that he's losing the support of Republican members of Congress. Ultimately, he was pushed into ending the shutdown because his own members of his own party lost patience with his strategy here.
I mean, that's true if he hasn't got his own side. And to be fair, it was always a slightly flaky side in terms of Trump's fit with the Republicans. Then he's in deep trouble. You know as well as I do that politicians on the border actually oppose the building of a border wall. I mean, he's barking up the wrong tree on this one.
Well, I think those are incorrect for a host of reasons. But starting, the one congressman, Will Hurd, who is in a Democrat district and he's trying to hold on to it, is why he's opposing the border wall, because it's not particularly popular. But I tell you, when you look at the Republican Party, they were unified in their support of the president, especially in their support of him building the wall and having the shutdown. The president ended the shutdown because he did the right thing, because he listened to the American people. He tried to negotiate with the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi, Speaker Pelosi, who refused to negotiate.
Paris.
And he said, you know what? Fine, I'll do it, and let's have a conversation.
He was called
let's
a
see
caveman.
if Speaker Pelosi.
He was called a caveman because it was so obviously clear that he had to back down because nobody supported it. Isn't the truth that it worked on the campaign trail and it was never going to work in practice? Not with his own side, not with the opposition, not ultimately with the American people.
No, you're absolutely wrong, because you have in 2004, 2006, they voted for the Safe Fence Act. You had President Obama getting there, our friend worked for, who said this was a humanitarian crisis on the border. You've had people in the office right now on the Democrat side who have supported border security, supported a fence.
Border security is not the same as a wall. You know that border security is something
they have supported a wall. They actually supported a wall and a fence. And the reason why he went from a concrete wall to steel slats is because that's what they wanted. He said, so let's do that. Steel slats are actually more expensive, but that's what the Democrats would do.
For the Democrats, this is uncomfortable because he is on territory that they haven't managed to solve under 2 terms of Obama, and they haven't got it right, which is why it's chimed so starkly with the people.
The truth is there is bipartisan support for border security. And we're in the 21st century. I know from working on border issues for many years that when we're talking about criminal actions, we are talking about people who can get around a wall. We're talking about people who smuggle narcotics through the ports of entry. We're talking about people who use sophisticated tunnels to go under the border. Even people who use things like submarines to transport contraband.
Okay. Let me talk more widely now. Nancy Pelosi has been very strong on this. Some would say she's been very close to overplaying her hand in some of her own tactics. She might be falling into that Republican, trap, if you like, that they can turn around and say, if everything goes to pot, it's the Democrats' fault they had the House.
They'll do that no matter what. What really matters now for Nancy Pelosi is that she demonstrates that she can stand up to this president. She demonstrates the power of the House of Representatives, and she shows that she can skillfully manage a fairly diverse caucus. And I think that's what she's done very successfully to date.
Do you agree, Paris, that you're now seeing a quality, a real shift in some of the new, younger female Democrats coming in, not just the women, of course, but they have changed the whole look, the demographic now of the House, and that will represent a threat to Trump?
That represents more of a threat to Speaker Pelosi and her ability to get them riled around legislation. You have people calling for universal health care, universal Medicare. You have people who are actually calling themselves socialists. The Democrat Party is not unified. They have they're being pulled to the extreme left, and that's a difficult way to govern. And that's going to be a challenge for Speaker Pelosi. You have people who came in, those same women, those same new, fresh ideas, Democrats and socialists who said they weren't even going to support her for Speaker. So this is a new crop that she's going to have to deal with, and it's going to be more of a challenge for her. But the bigger challenge is for Speaker Pelosi and the Democrat leaderships to look the American people in the face and say, you know what, we are going to work with the president and with the Republicans to get things done.
Well,
that's what it's all about.
Just before we leave the Pelosi point, presumably you're also expecting Republicans to challenge President Trump next year in 2020.
Absolutely not. I think the Republican Party is unified around President Trump. When you look at the record of accomplishments that he had gone through, it's a winning record, and it's a record for him to run on and for us to support.
Not at all. I am quite certain that there are going to be challenges to his leadership. The Republican Party is not unified behind this president. This president is not in the same place as they are on issues like Russia and on Syria. And I fully expect that there will be challengers and who will do fairly well. There is a group of Republicans out there who are extremely frustrated by this particular president.
Thank you both very much indeed. Thank you.